In this video, we're going to talk about how to allocate common costs by using the standalone cost allocation method. So let's say that you live in Chicago and you have your friend Paul who lives in Paris and you have a friend Rachel who lives in Rome. And they both would like you to come visit them for the holidays. And they say, you know what, we're doing well financially. We will pay for you to come out and visit us, right? So you're saying, okay, well, how much does it cost for me to fly from Chicago to Paris round trip? Well, that's $900, right, to go to Paris. And then to go from Chicago to Rome round trip would be $1,100, right? And your friends they've done well financially and they're willing to reimburse you the cost. So you say, hey, that's great. But you know what? Hey, I could save them some money if I fly to Paris and then fly from Paris to Rome and then from Rome back to Chicago. If I do that, I could be a good friend here and save my friend some money. Instead of it costing $2,000, which is the $1,100 plus $900, the combined cost of those two round trips, if I do it this way, the cost of the flight would be $1,600. So I'm saving my friends $400 here on being a good friend. Now here's the question. How do we allocate those costs, right? We know it's cheaper. It's $1,600 instead of $2,000, but how much do we bill Paul for and how much do we bill Rachel for, right? We need to know how much to tell our friends that we need to be reimbursed for. And the question is, how do we divvy up this $1,600? So the standalone cost allocation method basically says the following, that we're going to consider each of these costs for Paul and for Rachel. We're going to consider them individually to calculate the proportionate share of that $1,600 that Paul and Rachel are each going to have to cover. So it'll be a little easier to understand with an example. So let's say for Paul, we're going to say 900 out of the $2,000, right? So again, we're starting first with the standalone costs, right? 900 over 900 plus 1,100, which is $2,000. If we compute that gives us 0.45, which is the same as 45%, right? And if we look at Rachel's share, Rachel's proportionate share, we take Rachel's standalone cost, right? If we're just going to visit Rachel, be $1,100, right? And then we divide that, just like Paul's, we divide it by 900 plus 1,100. So we're looking at the total cost in the denominator here. This is the total cost if we added up both of them standalone basis. So on a if we did this standalone thing, right, where we did each one separately, Rachel would be 55% of the cost and Paul would get 45%. He would be of the total cost. So now what we do, having calculated these percentages here, we just apply them toward that cheaper discounted rate, that $1,600, right? So now let's multiply here. We'll go by 1,600. All right, so Paul is going to get 45% of 1,600, and then Rachel is going to pay 55% of 1,600. So I'm just going to calculate that out here, and so it looks like Paul will have $720 in costs, and then Rachel will be $880 in costs. Now, just to make sure you did this correctly, you want to add these up, right? Add these up. So 720 plus 880 is going to give you $1,600, which is the amount of the shared cost that we were setting out to allocate, right? So all we did was we said, let's look at these on a standalone basis. If we purchase them each separately, Paul, of the total costs of each of them separately added together, Paul would have 45%, Rachel would have 55%. We take that times that discounted rate, and we're going to end up giving Paul a bill for $720, and we're going to give Rachel a bill for $880, and we're going to have a wonderful European